Hello everyone and welcome to the table. So I have a brand new knife for you to check out. So this right here is coming to us from HX Outdoors, and they call this knife the Rock Sapphire. So a sapphire, a pretty cool name for a knife actually, and it might be a part of a series they're doing because they have another one called the Fluorite. And so of course these are both, rocks, gemstones essentially. But if you've never heard of the brand HX Outdoors, you're not alone. I kind of associate this brand in my head with Amazon essentially because I've seen some of their stuff on there before, and I associate this brand with a lot of lower end stuff. Very inexpensive knives, cheapy knives, but this one actually has some pretty high end materials on it for the price, and so I appreciate what they've sent out here. So this right here, the Rock Sapphire, we are featuring, believe it or not, that's a titanium handle. So titanium handle. And this knife is coming in at about the $30 price point. So that's kind of crazy. So with titanium handles, where else are they making cuts to bring in a knife that costs 30 bucks? So let's check it out. So what we have here, of course, this is a smallish sized everyday carry knife. And so when I say smallish, it's not tiny or anything, but let's go ahead and pull out the ruler, check things out, because our blade length, as you can see right here, our cutting edge comes out to about 2.5 inches long. And if you're measuring from tip to scale, we're pretty much a hair under 3 inches in length. And so overall length you can see is about just shy of 7 inches, So it's not a tiny knife by any means, but it's one on the smaller side, it's kind of nice and hand filling. You can see the handle right here has a nice swell for your finger. And for me, I can fit my full grip on the blade, which is kind of nice. Nice finger choil right here on the blade as well, so you can choke up if you choose to and use that 2.5 inches of cutting edge, for your own use. The blade that we have on this knife, so we can check that out. Of course, we can see right there, it's marked as a D2 steel blade. And again, for a $30 knife with titanium, yeah, definitely D2 is more than acceptable at that price point. It has a satin finish on it, so we can see the satin lines on there, the grinds. Pretty clean. And I admit that satin, picks up fingerprints like crazy. So I apologize if you see any of that in this video. But yeah, so it came pretty shiny out of the box. Satin finish, D2 steel blade, titanium handles. And we can see we are a liner lock action in there. Liner lock looks like it's titanium, but it's not. It is a steel. It's a steel liner, but it's colored the same. So it has kind of like a nice bead blasted finish on that steel liner. And looking into liners, we can see this scale right here is just pure titanium, no steel on one side. So it's nice and lightweight, has that see-through look to it. So that does save a little bit on, weight reduction there. We also do have a nice little pocket clip, not a deep carry, and it's only one position, so tip up, right-hand side carry. But we can see it's just a nice satin pocket clip, nothing fancy. It is exactly what you expect it to be. It carries the knife in your pocket. No more, no less. And so nothing wrong with this right here. A lot of companies are opting for everything deep carry nowadays, so it's interesting to see something slightly out of the ordinary. But again, when we're getting titanium on a $30 knife, again, they're making cuts in certain other areas, to hit that price point, I imagine. And so what is this knife for? It's a smallish size knife, but in my opinion, I think the titanium kind of brings it up a notch. And so honestly, this knife and this kind of series of knife right here, this is not a bad idea. Let's say you just want to play around with anodizing titanium. This is a pretty cheap platform to practice on, because you can see the titanium itself is machined, has a cool little pattern on there. So I bet if you are able to anodize titanium and want to get some cool colors, you could probably play around with this and get something pretty neat looking, pretty unique looking, and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, and you're not going to, potentially ruin a super expensive knife if you mess it up or, do anything wrong. So I think for that purpose, this is a pretty cool option for a pocket knife. You can't do a whole lot worse. And so taking a look at the blade, we can see the logo on one side right here. It's a little fuzzy and it's kind of hard to pick up on camera. Let me get that angle. There we go. So it says HX Outdoors and their little logo right there. It's hard to see at this size, but it's like a boar. It's like a big boar, like stylized. So kind of cool. So we have a boar logo on that side and some Chinese symbols over here on this side. And actually, I ran those symbols through translator. And so as far as I can tell, these symbols mean Han Road. And so I don't know if that's of significance in China at all, or maybe that's where this company's located. But it basically says Han Road on that label right there. So kind of interesting, I suppose, if that means something to you. And if you know what that means in Chinese significance, drop a comment below. And of course, the model name. So they call this the ZD113S. Also, nice packaging is actually not too bad. This is a heavy duty, like little plastic case, cleaning cloth, of course, little sticker, maybe. I guess that's what that is. But I love seeing these little waterproof cases because you could totally repurpose this for something else. You could fit all kinds of stuff in there and just keep it, for safekeeping. Alternatively, of course, you could store the knife in here as well for collecting purposes if you do that kind of thing. But I do appreciate seeing something that's reusable and not necessarily disposable, for a knife at this price point. And so the blade itself, so our knife here runs on bearings. The action is nice and spiffy. So again, no issues that I've seen with the action, with blade play or anything. The blade is, of course, exceptionally sharp out of the box. No issues there. So the quality control on this particular example is pretty well executed. We can see the lockup right there is nice and early. We can see, of course, the centering as well. On a knife on bearings, those usually just come out just right. And this one is a great example of centering there. So we can see that. We can see there's a small lanyard hole near the back of the knife. And for a smaller size knife, I think that's pretty appropriate. You can probably put some gutted out paracord through there if you really wanted to and use a lanyard with this thing. So pretty interesting design overall. And I don't see this model currently on Amazon. I know it's on their website available from China, but if you don't want to purchase direct, I don't know if this one's coming to Amazon. One of their other models with the titanium handle is on there, and it has an even better price. So I'm kind of tempted to pick up the fluorite that they have on their website or on the Amazon site because it's only $15 compared to the $30 for this and $15 for another knife with a titanium handle. I mean, I'm thinking, that's interesting. And yes, it is titanium. It's not magnetic in any way. So it's either very well disguised aluminum or it's titanium. Maybe an inexpensive alloy of titanium. I'm not a metallurgist. I don't know the difference. To me, it looks like a bead blasted titanium handle. But I know it's not steel. I know that much for sure. Nice big fat choil. If you've seen this design before, if you're in the knife world at all, this might look familiar to you because essentially what HX Outdoors did here is they took the design of a Civivi, I think it's the Mini Praxis, and the same exact shape essentially. So this blade shape, super familiar with this big choil right here, same drop point blade that we see on the Civivi model. But again, the knife does differ in a few different ways. Number one, of course, the titanium scales differentiate it. The pocket clip is not a deep carry pocket clip, so it's not an exact one-off clone of the Civivi Mini Praxis, but on glance, it's the same shape. So is this the same factory making these knives? Maybe, possibly, and again, you could confuse me because the fit and finish on this particular model feels really good. So if you told me Civivi had made this, I would have no trouble believing you. Maybe, Civivi's off shift, makes the HX Outdoors knives. Who knows at this point? But as a smaller knife, let's make some small knife comparisons here. So what we have on the table, another budget option, we have a CRKT Squid. So Squid, again, smaller blade. We can see the handle shape and size right there, right next to it. We also have, let's look at some US made knives just for, size comparison. We have a Kershaw Leek right here. So this is the random Leek in that dark coating, black wash coating. Similar blade length, similar overall size, but again, a very different size of a knife. And also kind of small, we have right here a Benchmade Mini Bug Out. So the Mini Bug Out, again, a smaller blade, and let's just see kind of how it compares size-wise. And I think it's pretty favorable overall. So overall length, again, is going to be very, very similar to the HX Outdoor Sapphire, Rock Sapphire here. And I think it makes a pretty compelling option. So right now, again, $30 if you go direct to the HX Outdoors website. And now shipping might cost you a little bit extra. So, your mileage may vary because shipping from China is not always going to be super cheap or super fast. So honestly, you might want to wait till this knife shows up on Amazon at some point. Titanium, $30. Pretty good deal, in my opinion. So the knife itself is super impressive. I literally don't see anything wrong with it in terms of fit and finish. I think it's very well executed as a design. So I have not noticed any mechanical issues of that nature. So if you have any questions or comments, please drop those below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And again, HX Outdoors, it's another very hungry company out there, and they are looking for your dollars for their product. Tell me what you think about this. Have a nice day, everyone, and I'll see you later.